Hello, everyone. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us today. We have a brand new story to share with you. So let's get started. My name is Sophia Reyes. I never thought betrayal could wear a face so familiar, so trusted. Yet, there I was, staring at the bright screen of my laptop, my hands trembling as the devastating realization settled in. My name is Sophia Reyes, and 5 years ago, I poured my heart and soul into developing a groundbreaking AI-driven security system. The sleepless nights, the endless hours of coding, the sacrifices, I had done it all, believing I was building something that would revolutionize cybersecurity. And the person I trusted most, Daniel Carter, my fiancé and business partner, had just stolen it from me. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly, like a slow-growing crack in a glass window. Daniel had never been interested in my work before. He dismissed my ideas, told me that investors wouldn't take a woman in tech seriously, that I should stick to something more realistic. And yet, one day, his tone changed. He became curious about my algorithms, asking me intricate details about my neural network design, my encryption techniques. At first, I was thrilled. Maybe he was finally seeing my potential. Maybe he wanted to support me. I was a fool. The night before everything fell apart, we sat together in our tiny apartment, sharing takeout and wine. Daniel was unusually affectionate, more attentive than ever. He asked if I could explain the latest version of my program, how it worked, why it was special. I was so excited, so eager to share my passion with him, that I didn't think twice about opening my laptop and walking him through my source code. I even let him use my computer to test a few things, watching as he typed commands with an interest he had never shown before. That night, I went to bed thinking this was a turning point, that maybe he finally believed in me. By morning, he was gone. Not just him, but my work too. I woke up to find my laptop screen frozen, unresponsive. When I restarted it, I was greeted with the horrifying sight of an empty hard drive. Everything was gone. Years of work, thousands of lines of code, every single version of my AI model, erased without a trace. My fingers flew over the keyboard, running recovery programs, desperately trying to salvage anything. But deep down, I already knew the truth. Daniel had done this. I grabbed my phone, my heart pounding as I dialed his number. It rang once, twice, before going straight to voicemail. Confusion turned to fear, fear to anger. I checked his closet. Half of his clothes were missing. His laptop, his work bag, his belongings, all gone. And then I saw it. On the kitchen counter sat a single note in his neatly scrawled handwriting. "I'm sorry, Sophia. You'll understand soon." Understand what? That he had just walked away from me. Our engagement, our company, that he had left me with nothing? I didn't have to wait long for the answer. That afternoon, as I scrolled mindlessly through my phone, drowning in confusion and heartbreak, a news alert popped up. Breaking. Tech entrepreneur Daniel Carter unveils game-changing cybersecurity startup. My breath caught. I clicked the link, my stomach twisting into knots. There, on the screen, was a photo of Daniel standing confidently on a stage, a massive presentation slide behind him displaying the logo for Carter Tech, his brand new company. And beneath it, a tagline that made my blood run cold. The future of AI-driven security. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. It was my work, my innovation, my dream. And Daniel had just stolen everything. The world around me blurred as I stared at my phone screen, the glowing headline burning into my mind like a cruel joke. Daniel Carter, the visionary CEO of Carter Tech, the genius behind the next generation of AI-driven security. My work. My hands tightened around the phone as I scrolled through the article, each word sending another wave of rage and disbelief crashing over me. The article hailed Daniel as a brilliant innovator, claiming that he had been developing his groundbreaking security system for the past 5 years, the exact amount of time I had been working on it. A slideshow accompanied the article, showcasing images from the Carter Tech launch event. Daniel stood on a sleek, modern stage, shaking hands with investors, executives, journalists, all of them showering him with admiration. He smiled confidently, basking in the success he had stolen. And then I saw it. The final slide. A screenshot of my code displayed on the massive screen behind him. He hadn't even bothered to change it. A numb coldness spread through me, followed by something far stronger. Fury. He thought he had won. He thought I would disappear quietly, too humiliated, too broken to fight back. He was wrong. I took a deep breath, my mind shifting into survival mode. I had to act fast. First, I needed proof. I dug through my old emails, searching for anything that connected Daniel to my project. I found contracts, development logs, timestamps, clear evidence that I had created the technology long before he ever laid eyes on it. But I needed something irrefutable, something that would destroy his fabricated story. Then, I remembered, the external hard drive. Daniel might have erased my laptop, but he didn't know I kept backup files. I scrambled to my desk, pulling open drawers, pushing past old notebooks and forgotten papers until... There. My fingers closed around the small black drive, my heart racing. I plugged it into my computer, my pulse hammering in my ears as I waited. For a second, nothing. Then, the folders appeared. Years of work, intact. Every piece of code, every test log, every email, everything that proved this was mine. A bitter smile curled my lips. Daniel had underestimated me. Second, I needed allies. I couldn't take him down alone. I needed a legal team, the best in the business. I dialed a number I never thought I'd use again. Ethan Marshall. Ethan was one of the top intellectual property attorneys in the country. He was also my ex-boyfriend. The call rang once before he picked up. Sophia? His voice was surprised, cautious. I need your help, I said, cutting straight to the point. Daniel Carter stole my work. He's passing it off as his own, and he just launched a company using my technology. There was a beat of silence. Then Ethan exhaled sharply. I saw the news. I knew it felt too polished for Daniel. Tell me everything. I did. When I finished, Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then his voice hardened. We're going to burn him to the ground. I nodded, gripping my phone. I want everything he stole from me back, and I want the world to know the truth. Ethan didn't hesitate. Then let's make sure Daniel Carter regrets the day he ever met you. Game on. I sat across from Ethan in his sleek, modern law office, my fingers gripping a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. The city lights outside shimmered against the floor-to-ceiling windows, but all I could focus on was the stack of documents spread out between us. The weight of what I was about to do pressed down on me, but beneath that pressure was something stronger. Determination. Ethan flipped through my files, nodding as he scanned each page. This is solid, he said. You have timestamps, original source code, emails. It's all here. The patents Daniel filed, they came after yours. He glanced up at me. He doesn't stand a chance, Sophia. Good, because I wasn't just here to challenge Daniel's patents. I wanted to rip his empire apart, piece by piece. Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying me carefully. You ready for the next step? I nodded. What do we do first? He smirked. We make sure the world knows the truth. Step 1. Exposing Daniel. We didn't go straight to the courts. That would take time, and I wasn't about to let Daniel sit comfortably in his stolen success while the legal process dragged on. No, I wanted to hit him where it hurt, his reputation. Ethan pulled out his phone and made a call. Within minutes, his office filled with a small team of professionals, a PR expert, a forensic tech analyst, and a corporate investigator. They sat down, and Ethan laid it out. Our goal is to prove, publicly and irrefutably, that Daniel Carter stole Sophia's work. We'll do it in 3 ways: media exposure, investor pressure, and legal action. He turned to me. But the first step is getting the public on your side. Are you ready for that kind of attention? I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palm. I don't care about attention, I said. I care about justice. Ethan grinned. That's what I like to hear. The PR expert, Lisa, leaned forward. We need to control the narrative before Daniel does. The moment we file a legal challenge, it'll hit the news. We'll need to prepare interviews, release evidence, and make sure investors start questioning his credibility. I swallowed hard. Let's do it. Lisa nodded. We'll start with a leaked report, a document that highlights the discrepancies in Daniel's patents versus Sophia's original work. We'll send it to select journalists, people who will dig deeper. The corporate investigator, Mark, spoke up. I've already started looking into Daniel's business dealings. If he's stolen your work, there's a good chance he's cut other corners too. I had no doubt. Daniel wasn't just a thief. He was a liar. Step 2. The first blow. 2 days later, the first article dropped. Breaking: CEO of Carter Tech accused of stealing groundbreaking AI security tech. The article spread like wildfire, hitting every major tech news site within hours. They had everything: timestamps, code comparisons, even emails showing Daniel discussing stolen work. I sat in my apartment, scrolling through the endless tweets and comments. Wow, Carter Tech is a scam. Daniel Carter built his entire empire on stolen work? Disgusting. Rooting for Sophia to take him down? My heart pounded. This was just the beginning. And then my phone rang. I checked the caller ID. Daniel. For a second, I considered ignoring it, but then I thought of everything he had taken from me. My years of work, my dream, my name. I picked up. Sophia, he said, his voice tight. You're making a mistake, I smirked. Oh, Daniel, you have no idea what kind of mistake you made the day you stole from me. Then I hung up. Let the real war begin. The storm had officially begun. Daniel had spent years building an empire on my stolen work, but now the foundation was starting to crumble. The media firestorm only intensified as more outlets picked up the story, and within 48 hours, Carter Tech's stock took its first major hit. Investors were panicking, demanding answers from Daniel, but I knew him too well. He wouldn't admit to anything unless he was forced to, and that was exactly what I was about to do. Step 3. The press conference. I sat at the long table, facing a sea of flashing cameras and reporters. Lisa, my PR strategist, sat to my left, Ethan to my right. My evidence was laid out in a presentation behind me. Timestamps, source code comparisons, and even emails from Daniel himself, unknowingly confirming his theft. I leaned forward, my voice calm but deadly serious. I stand before you today to reveal the truth, I began, locking eyes with every camera in the room. 5 years ago, I created an AI-driven security system, an innovation that was set to change the industry. The man you know as Daniel Carter, CEO of Carter Tech, stole that technology from me. The room erupted with murmurs, pens scratching across notepads, fingers flying across keyboards. I continued. I have indisputable proof that Daniel took my work, rebranded it as his own, and filed patents after I had already developed the technology. I have emails, code comparisons, and a documented timeline that shows exactly how he did it. Carter Tech is built on fraud. The questions came fast and sharp. Are you filing a lawsuit? Will you be seeking financial compensation? Do you believe Daniel Carter should step down? I kept my face neutral. I had already planned my answer. I am taking legal action, I confirmed, not just to reclaim what is mine, but to expose the corruption at the highest level of Carter Tech. And as for Daniel stepping down, I let out a small smirk. That's not up to me, but I think his investors will soon make that decision for him. Step 4. The boardroom showdown. 2 days after my press conference, Carter Tech's board of directors called an emergency meeting. I knew this because Ethan's sources had confirmed it. They were scared. And if I knew anything about powerful men like Daniel, it was that fear makes them reckless. I arrived at the Carter Tech headquarters unannounced. The receptionist's eyes widened when she saw me. Miss Monroe, I'm here to see Daniel, I said, my voice cool. I suggest you let him know before I walk straight into that boardroom. I didn't have to wait long. Within 5 minutes, Daniel's assistant appeared looking frantic. Mr. Carter is busy, I interrupted. I'm sure he is. I walked past her, straight into the boardroom where a dozen men in suits turned to look at me. And there he was. Daniel sat at the head of the table, his face pale but his jaw set in fury. Sophia, he said, his voice controlled. This is a private meeting. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. Then you should really consider better security, Daniel, because I just walked right in. A few board members exchanged nervous glances. Good. They were already doubting him. One of them cleared his throat. Ms. Monroe, this is highly unorthodox. What's unorthodox is the fact that you're still sitting here, pretending this man didn't steal his entire company from me, I cut in. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Silence. Daniel stood, his mask cracking for the first time. You're trying to destroy everything I built. I stepped forward. No, Daniel, I'm taking back what was mine. The room was thick with tension as the board members shuffled through their notes, whispering among themselves. They knew the truth, and now they had to decide if they were going to sacrifice Daniel to save themselves. I could already see it in their faces. They were going to throw him to the wolves. The boardroom was silent, but the weight of impending disaster was written across every face in the room. I could feel the tension thick in the air, the moment of reckoning approaching fast. The powerful, untouchable Daniel Carter was losing control, and he knew it. His fingers curled into fists as he glared at me across the table. I could see the vein in his temple pulsing, his polished CEO mask cracking at the edges. Good. Let it break? One of the senior board members, a silver-haired man named Wallace, cleared his throat and finally spoke. Mr. Carter, he said carefully, flipping through the documents in front of him. This situation is alarming. His words were measured, but his doubt was clear. Another board member, a woman named Evelyn, turned to me. Ms. Monroe, do you have any additional proof beyond what was presented at the press conference? I smiled, slowly pulling a USB drive from my pocket and placing it on the table. This drive contains a full timeline of my work, source code, patents, and, most importantly, emails from Daniel. Emails where he discussed the theft of my technology. I let the words hang in the air, watching Daniel's face drain of color. The tension erupted. The board members started murmuring amongst themselves, flipping through their notes, pulling out their phones. A storm was brewing, and Daniel was caught right in the middle of it. Are we seriously entertaining this? Daniel's voice cut through the murmurs, his usual confidence fracturing into anger. This woman is nothing but a bitter ex trying to ruin me. I laughed, leaning forward. Bitter? No, Daniel, I said, my voice razor sharp. If I wanted to ruin you, I would have done it years ago. This question mark, this is just justice. His fists clenched, but he didn't dare speak. Wallace rubbed his temple, clearly exasperated. Mr. Carter, are you denying these claims? Daniel straightened, regaining some of his composure. Of course I am. He turned to me, smirking. Where's the solid proof, Sophia? A few old emails? A USB drive? That's not enough to... I held up my hand. Actually, I said smoothly, reaching into my bag, I have something more. With a satisfying click, I placed a stack of legal documents on the table. Signed affidavits, I explained. From former employees, engineers, and even one of your ex-business partners. They've all confirmed that you took my work and passed it off as your own. The room erupted again, but this time the murmurs were filled with urgency, panic. Daniel's smirk vanished. Evelyn scanned the documents, her expression hardening with every passing second. Then she looked at him. Mr. Carter, if these allegations are true, then Carter Tech is in serious legal jeopardy. Wallace nodded gravely. We'll have no choice but to remove you as CEO. Daniel's eyes flashed with fury. You can't do that, he snapped, slamming his hand on the table. This is my company. No, I said calmly, watching his downfall unfold in real time. It's mine. The final blow. At that moment, the boardroom doors swung open and Daniel's assistant rushed in, face pale as a ghost. She whispered something urgently into his ear, and I watched the color drain completely from his face. What? He hissed, his voice trembling. She hesitated before repeating, loud enough for everyone to hear. The investors are pulling out. The stock is crashing. Silence. Complete. Utter. Silence. Daniel's breathing became erratic, his world shattering in real time. He stumbled back, gripping the edge of the table like he might collapse. He turned to me, eyes burning with hatred. You planned this, he whispered, his voice low and filled with venom. I met his gaze, my expression unshaken. No, Daniel, you did this to yourself. Then, with all the power he once held stripped away, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the boardroom, his empire burning behind him. The beginning of something new. The moment the doors slammed shut, the boardroom let out a collective breath. Wallace turned to the others. We need to move quickly. Carter Tech is finished under Daniel's leadership. Evelyn nodded, then turned to me. Ms. Monroe, she said, a newfound respect in her voice. If you're interested, we'd like to discuss the future of Carter Tech, with you at the helm. I leaned back in my chair, a small, satisfied smile forming on my lips. The thief had fallen, and now it was time to reclaim what was mine. The dust had barely settled from the chaos of the board meeting, but the fallout was far from over. Daniel's exit had been spectacularly humiliating, but I knew a man like him wouldn't go down without a fight. I wasn't wrong. Barely an hour after his public disgrace, I was sitting in my office, his former office, when my phone buzzed with a blocked number. I already knew who it was before I answered. Enjoying yourself? Daniel's voice came through, laced with venom. I smirked, leaning back in the leather chair. More than you can imagine. He exhaled sharply, but I could hear the barely contained rage in his breath. This isn't over, Sophia. I rolled my eyes, twirling a pen between my fingers. Actually, it is. Listen to me, he growled, voice low and dangerous. You think you've won? You think you can just waltz in and take everything from me? No, Daniel. I kept my voice calm. I just took back what was mine to begin with. There was a long pause, and then he laughed, a cold, empty sound. "You don't get it, do you?" he said, his tone mocking. "This company wasn't just built on your little ideas. I made Carter Tech what it is, mister. And if you think those investors are going to stay loyal to you just because you paraded some old patents around, you're more naive than I thought." I clenched my jaw. This was his game. Manipulation. He was trying to get into my head, but I wouldn't let him. "I think you overestimate your importance, Daniel," I said smoothly. "Because from what I hear, you are the liability, not me." His voice turned icy. "We'll see about that." And then the line went dead. An unexpected betrayal. I barely had time to process the conversation before my assistant, Leah, burst through the door, her face pale. "We have a problem," she said, breathless. I straightened. "What now?" She slid her tablet across the desk, the screen filled with headlines. "Carter Tech in crisis. Former CEO claims hostile takeover. Daniel Carter speaks out, says betrayal cost him everything. Stock prices plummet amid CEO shakeup." I felt the blood drain from my face. "That bastard," I muttered, clicking on one of the articles. Daniel had wasted no time playing the victim, painting himself as the wronged genius, the man who had been betrayed by his ambitious ex. He was spinning the narrative, turning the public, the investors, against me. I slammed the tablet down. Leah hesitated. "It gets worse." I looked up sharply. "Some investors are pulling out," she said grimly. "They're scared, Sophia. Daniel's convincing them that without him, Carter Tech is worthless." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I had anticipated this. Of course, Daniel would try to burn the company down before letting me have it. But what I didn't anticipate was the next bombshell. Leah swallowed hard. "And he just announced he's launching a new company." I froze. "What?" She nodded. "He's already reached out to some of Carter Tech's biggest clients, promising them better deals if they jump ship." My heart pounded, but I forced myself to remain calm. This was Daniel's last desperate move. He was trying to steal what he could before his reputation was completely ruined, and I wasn't going to let him win. The plan to end him. I stood up, my mind racing. "Get the legal team," I told Leah. "I want them to review every contract with our clients. If Daniel is violating a single non-compete agreement, we'll bury him in lawsuits." She nodded, already dialing. "And Leah?" I said, grabbing my coat. She looked up. "Schedule a press conference," I said, my voice steel. "It's time the world hears the real story." This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about finishing Daniel Carter once and for all. The boardroom was silent, except for the sound of my heels clicking against the polished marble floor as I made my way to the head of the table. The tension in the air was thick, every executive and investor in the room waiting for me to speak. Across from me, Daniel Carter sat slouched in his chair, his face carefully blank, but his eyes burned with barely contained fury. He was here out of necessity, not choice. His last attempt to steal my clients, launch a competing company, and spread lies to tank Carter Tech had failed spectacularly. His press tour, where he played the victim, had initially shaken our investors, but once my legal team got involved, we exposed every lie. The lawsuits I filed for breach of contract, intellectual property theft, and defamation were airtight. The investors who had initially been nervous were now furious. And his so-called new company? It collapsed before it even started, with no funding, no clients, and no credibility. Now, he was here, facing the wreckage of his empire, an empire that should have never been his in the first place. I set my documents down and looked at him. "Daniel," I began, my voice steady, composed, but filled with the power of someone who had won. "Let's cut the formalities. We both know why you're here." He scoffed, crossing his arms. "You think you've won?" His voice was low, but I caught the waver in it. I smiled, leaning forward slightly. "Oh, I don't think I've won," I said, tilting my head. "I know I have." A murmur ran through the room as I pushed a folder toward him. "This is the final settlement offer," I continued, my voice smooth, unwavering. "You sign this, and you walk away with whatever's left of your dignity. You don't, and I make sure you never work in this industry again." He laughed, shaking his head. "You're bluffing." I raised an eyebrow. "Am I?" With one click, I brought up the projector screen behind me. The investors turned to look, their faces shifting from curiosity to shock as the first slide appeared. Daniel's private emails, conversations where he admitted to using stolen code, to falsifying company valuations before the IPO, to manipulating investors. The next slide, bank statements showing the embezzlement he had been quietly trying to cover up. The final slide, a leaked investor memo warning every major firm in the industry about Daniel's unethical business practices. His face drained of color. The room was silent, waiting. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. "Still think I'm bluffing?" He gritted his teeth, his hands balling into fists. He knew this wasn't a negotiation. It was an execution. A long moment passed. Then, with shaking hands, he grabbed the pen and signed the settlement. I slid the papers toward my lawyer without even looking at him. "Thank you, Daniel," I said, standing. "You can see yourself out." He sat there for a moment, frozen, like he still couldn't believe it was over. Then, without another word, he stood and walked out, his shoulders slumped, defeated. And just like that, Daniel Carter was finished. Epilogue. The best revenge is success. A year later, I stood at the podium of Carter Tech's rebranded corporate headquarters, now fully under my control, but with a new name that reflected my vision, not Daniel's theft. Chen Security Solutions is more than just a cybersecurity company, I told the crowd of investors, employees, and reporters. It's a symbol of what happens when justice prevails, when innovation is protected, and when the right people lead. The room erupted in applause. As the cameras flashed and my name was finally being recognized for the work I had created, I realized something. I didn't just win against Daniel, I erased him. And I never had to look back. Looking back, I realized that justice doesn't always come in the way we expect it. For years, Daniel took everything from me, my work, my trust, my ideas, but in the end, he was the one left with nothing. Greed, deceit, and arrogance always come back to haunt you. This story isn't just about revenge, it's about resilience. It's about knowing your worth, standing your ground, and refusing to let anyone take credit for what you built. I could have walked away and let him win, but instead, I chose to fight back, not with anger, but with strategy, intelligence, and patience. And now, I hope this story serves as a reminder. Never let anyone silence your voice. Never let someone else define your success. And most importantly, never let a thief walk away with your dreams. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Have you ever faced betrayal like this? How would you have handled it? Subscribe to Scylla Reddit Stories to see more powerful, real-life tales of justice, revenge, and redemption. See you in the next story.